statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Welcome, Bitcoiners. Welcome, traders. Welcome, followers. Welcome, supporters. Welcome, haters. Welcome to you too. Welcome to everyone. Welcome to another live space with Oliver Velez. Of course, my name is Oliver Velez, and I'm your 13%er. That's right. A lot of people actually still ask me, Oliver, what does 13% mean? What does a 13%er mean? Some people actually misconstrue that as I believe in a 13% allocation to Bitcoin, which couldn't be further from the truth, guys. A 13%er is, in my opinion, the rarest group on planet Earth today. And what that basically means is that there is an elite group within an elite group that I call 13%ers. You see, Bitcoin, despite the fact that it is the best performing asset the world has ever seen or experienced, despite the fact that it is the 10th most valuable asset on planet Earth, despite the fact that out of 200 currencies, it's currently the 16th most valuable currency in the entire world. Despite all of this, less than 1% of all human beings have it. Now, I want you to think about the rarity of that. There are 8 billion people on planet Earth, and I'm willing to go as far as saying there's less than 0.5% of 8 billion people on Earth have Bitcoin. And with this little drop, this little speck of ownership, this little speck has helped to create the best performing asset in worldwide history. With this little speck, this little drop of ownership, it's the 10th most valuable asset on planet Earth. With this little tiny drop, it is the 16th most valuable currency on the globe. And it's accomplished all of these things in less than 15 years, which is absolutely unheard of for an asset or an asset class. And so when I say I'm a 13%er, it's already rare if you actually own Bitcoin. We've just established that. That makes you elite in the world right now. Any amount of Bitcoin makes you elite. But the 13%ers are that small percentage of that elite group that believe and know that Bitcoin is not an invention. It is a discovery. It is the manifestation of digital scarcity, which has always existed, but was just discovered in 2008, 2009. And that as a discovery, there can only be one. You see, you can't discover fire twice. Once it's discovered, it's one and done. It's finished. You can't keep rediscovering something. And if Bitcoin is truly a discovery of digital scarcity, if it is not an invention, if it's a discovery, then it is a one-off, that there is nothing else There is no Discovery 2.0 in the same fashion that there's no Fire 2.0, there's no Electricity 2.0, there's no Internet 2.0, and there's no Bitcoin 2.0. So it has been said that 13% of all the people that own Bitcoin. Now, we've already established that the people that own Bitcoin, that's a small elite group in and of itself. Now there's a smaller, more elite group of those owners that believe that Bitcoin is the only thing that matters. No other coin, no other item. It is the ultimate discovery. And so that's what makes me a 13%er. And I've taken it upon myself to do my best to convince all of you to be 13%ers as well. All right, guys. So listen, I wanted to it's been about a week or so since I've had one of these talks, but I wanted to touch upon something that is very relevant today, and that is the institutional adoption of Bitcoin. And I specifically want to talk about the fact that the institutions are late to Bitcoin. That's right. The institutions coming into Bitcoin today, the BlackRocks of the world, right? Fidelity's been involved for quite some time, but the BlackRocks of the world, the Vanexx of the world, the State Streets of the world, these institutions coming into Bitcoin today, they are the late ones. And we, for the very first time, are the front runners. For the first time in financial history, we, the regular individual, we front ran the institutions. For the first time, we're the pre-IPO players. For the first time, we got or get first dibs. And for the first time, the big boys are last. For the first time, the institutions are late. For the first time, they're coming in on the tail end of something. Now, I need to be careful with my wording here because 15 years is not even really starting for an asset or an asset class. So when I say they're coming in to the game late, it is a relative lateness. And what I mean by that is we have never before been given the ability to get in on the ground floor of anything. That the elite class, the big money class, has always had that advantage over the masses, over the regular individual. I have been in the financial space for 43 years. All right. I have worked for and traded for some of the most respected trading organizations on earth. And I will tell you that the entire game is about being first. That I've lived through countless what's called initial public offerings, IPOs of brand new companies. I've participated in the pre-IPO rounds. These rounds are played, these pre-initial public offering rounds are played by big players, big money. And by the time a company goes public, think about the wording. By the time shares are made publicly available, the big money has played that for years. That going public is the way they dump on the public. They've already played the pre-IPO rounds. They played the A series round and the B series round and the C series round and the D series round. And then after they've all gotten their taste, some of which have already exited, the final step is to now make it available to every other individual out there. The final step is to dump on the masses. The final step is the IPO. But Bitcoin's IPO is in January. I want you to think about what I'm saying here, Bitcoiners, traders, followers, supporters. Listen, Bitcoin's IPO is January 2024. It's the equivalent of going public. And for the first time, it's the institutions that are late to the game. It's the institutions that are being dumped on. We front ran the institutions. We participated in the best performing asset the world has ever seen. We participated already in the 10th most valuable asset on planet Earth. We already own the 16th most valuable currency on planet Earth. And it's the institutions that have been on the outside looking in and now still waiting for their turn to participate, which actually becomes available to them. The IPO, the Bitcoin IPO, becomes available to the institutions this upcoming January, in just a few days, or sometime in the beginning of 2024, should the ETF applications be delayed. Sometime in the first quarter of 2024, Bitcoin has its institutional IPO, its initial public offering to the latecomers. We're the early ones. And this is so apropos for Bitcoin because Bitcoin is fair. Bitcoin is available to every single human being on Earth, yet it is not controlled by any human being on planet Earth. And so when I say late, do I mean that the institutions are late from a time perspective? No, not from a time perspective, because, guys, 15 years for an asset or an asset class is extraordinarily young. And so if you think about it, silver has been around and used as a form of money for 9,000 years. Gold's been around and has been used for 6,000 years. The bond market is over 600 years old. The equity market is over 200 years old. Asset classes are hundreds of years to thousands of years old. 15 years is just the warm up. And so, from a time perspective, I'm not saying that the institutions are late from a time perspective. Then how exactly are they late? They're late from a supply perspective. Now, think about this. Most people listening to me talk this very moment, most people will understand that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin to ever exist. Actually, if you look at the image that I posted under this talk today, you'll see that the real number is actually slightly less than 21 million. But let's round it for the sake of simplicity. There will ever only be 21 million Bitcoin to ever exist. And the last Satoshi gets mined in the year 2140. Now, think about this. if you take a look at the image that I posted, you'll see that, let me pull it up myself here. What you will see, give me a second here. What you'll see is that out of the max supply of 21 million, 19 point, let's call it 19.6 million have already been mined. Think about this, people. That's 93.2% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist. It's already owned. You see, a Bitcoin can't sit in limbo, right? It's not like it can sit on a shelf and not be owned by anyone. Once Bitcoin is issued, it is always owned by someone. You can't have an unowned Bitcoin. Do you understand this, right? It can't ever not be owned. So 19.58, let's round it, 19.6 million of the entire supply that will ever exist, 19.6 out of 21 million is already owned. And now the institutions are coming into this. Think about this. There's only 1.4 million Bitcoin left to be issued. They're coming in late from a supply perspective because 93.2% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist is already owned by someone. Now, these behemoths, the biggest asset managers on earth, BlackRock is considered to be the fourth branch of the US government. That's how big they are. You know how you learned in school that there are 3 branches of the US government? No, there's 4 branches of the US government. BlackRock's the fourth. That's how powerful they are. That's how big they are. That's how massive they are. That's how influential they are. And they're trying to now come in and squeeze themselves into this final 1.4 million Bitcoin that is going to take the next 100 plus years to come into existence. Remember, this 1.4 million Bitcoin that hasn't been issued yet is going to be issued over the next 100 plus years. The last Satoshi gets mined in 2140. Now that is front loaded, which means that the majority of this 1.4 million gets mined in the next 10 years. But the point is that as we speak right now, 93% of this is already owned by someone. And now the big boys are coming. 93% is already tightly gripped by someone. And now the big money is coming into the game. They're late, people. For the first time, the big money is late. For the first time, the institutions are late. For the first time, the big players are late. For the first time, the people with the greatest influence over things, they are the late ones. And what I said in my title is that not only are they late, but we should not dump on them. What do I mean by we shouldn't dump on them? You see, they typically dump. The game that the big players have traditionally played in my space is that they take a company public when they're already finished making money. Now they dump their bags on the public. That is why it's called going public, initial public offering. The public is late. They use the IPO to dump on the public. I am saying that Bitcoin's IPO coming up here in January, 90% chance that the IPO, the ETFs, I'm equating the ETF approvals as Bitcoin's institutional IPO. That If we play the game the way they play the game, we would be dumping our Bitcoin bags on them coming into the game late. But I say, don't let them have your Bitcoin. 93% of it's already owned. Let them scramble for the 1.4 million that comes into existence over the next 100 plus years. Let them scramble for that. We should not be giving up our Bitcoin to these players. We should make them scramble for every single Satoshi. Self-custody. And no one here, I'm not going to allow it. No one here is allowed to participate in this Bitcoin ETF. No, the ETF is not for you. It's for the latecomers. The ETF is for the institutions that by charter can't actually own on their balance sheet a commodity. The ETF is for institutions. The ETF is for entities that by charter are not allowed to hold the asset clean out for themselves. So they had to have indirect exposure through a registered security. But you are not in that position. You can own the real thing. You don't need to own a representative of the real thing. You don't need a paper version of it. And so no one here should be even thinking about participating in this Bitcoin ETF. I won't allow it. You have the privilege of owning the real thing. But there are many entities that don't have that privilege. There are entities that by their very charters, by the very nature of their organizations, they cannot hold a commodity. And Bitcoin has been deemed a commodity. So this is the vehicle for them, and it's better than nothing. But for you, you're going to own the authentic thing. You're not going to own someone's creation, someone's carbon copy of the real thing. The ETF is a carbon copy of the real thing. You don't need that. But it is going to be the vehicle by which the people who can't own it directly will get some exposure to it. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about, Bitcoiners today, that this is extraordinarily unique. What is about to happen is an IPO, make no mistake about it. That this is a transitional event that will change the nature of the market forever. It's almost as if Bitcoin was, for the first 15 years, just warming up for this IPO. And while I believe that the effect of these ETFs being approved, well, I think the effect won't be as powerful initially as many people are expecting it to be. Over time, it's mega. I think that many people are thinking that it's almost like some magic wand that instantly takes Bitcoin to millions of dollars a share, millions of dollars a coin, but that's not the case. It's almost like these things start off like a locomotive that just gathers steam, more and more steam, as it gets used to rolling on these new rails. And when it catches its stride, it never, ever stops. These ETFs will never stop buying. Do you understand this? They never stop, ever. I want you to think about the enormity of this. An ETF's purpose is to never stop buying, ever. I want you to think about how powerful that is. And I want you to think about the fact that 93% is already owned. So where is it going to get it from? Where are these ETFs that are designed to buy perpetually forever? Where are they going to get it from? They're going to have to raise the price to get it. You see, there's very few people willing to let go of their Bitcoin at 44,000, 43,000. But at 80,000, there will be more people willing to let it go. But there will be many people that are not going to be willing to let it go at 80,000 either. And then at 150,000, you'll get a few other people that are willing to let it go, but still there are going to be people that will not let go, like me at 150, at 500,000, at 1 million, at 2 million. They're going to have to keep raising the price in order to actually exist, because the purpose of an ETF is to buy forever. And this is why self-custody is so important. You make them scramble. You make them have to raise the price to shake some loose. They can't shake. It's not like gold where they can crank up more machines to dig a little deeper into the ground and get more gold. It's not like that. You can't shake the Bitcoin network for more. You can't say, well, let's just throw more miners at it and squeeze more Bitcoin out of it. No, this is the first asset that no matter how much money you throw at it, you can't get more. And this, I think, is lost even on people who consider themselves as gold bugs. If the last thing that you want to happen as a real gold bug is that you don't want the price of an ounce of gold to rise. You see, real, true gold people, if they're really true, they don't want a rising gold price. Because what a rising gold price will do is create more supply, which means that your existing holdings of gold gets diluted. If gold went from $2,000 an ounce to 4,000 overnight, do you know how many mines that aren't even being mined now will fire up and start being mined? Do you know how much machinery that's collecting dust right now will be cranked back up? Do you know how many explorations will be fired back up because the price is now 4,000? You would get a wave of new gold coming into existence like you haven't ever seen before. It's not that gold is not available. It's just not worth going after at $2,000 an ounce. But at $4,000 an ounce, you can't do that with Bitcoin. And you can't squeeze more out no matter what you do. And so it baffles me when I hear these comments about the ETF being bad for Bitcoin and they can control things. This is just lunacy. It's just gobbledygook talk by people who have freaking no clue of how the financial system works. An ETF's purpose is to buy the underlying asset forever, its life. Do you understand this? That's its purpose for existing, is to buy forever. And they're late. So these forever buyers coming into the market will provide a floor for Bitcoin's US dollar price that's never been there before. And these entities are constantly going to be pushing the price higher to get more. It's the only way they're going to be able to get it. They can't get it from the network, so the only way to get it is to raise the price. It's the only way they're going to be able to get their hands on Bitcoin perpetually, is to raise the price and raise the price and raise the price, because I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. You're not giving it up, hopefully. All right. Say It Rabbits has a question here. I've had GBTC for years in an IRA. I plan to sell and buy Bitcoin. Yes. Yes, guys. Listen, no paper versions for you. Again, the paper versions of Bitcoin. The ETF is a paper version of Bitcoin. Now, the ETF will have ownership of Bitcoin, but the people who buy into that ETF will only own the shares of the ETF. So it is indirect exposure, which for the most part means zero exposure, which means zero ownership. Exposure is not equivalent to ownership. I do hope everyone here on this call understands that you get paper exposure, but if you don't have the keys to your own Bitcoin, if you don't have those 12 to 24 mnemonic words, that is actually what your Bitcoin is. It's 12 to 24 words. People say, well, Oliver, what is my Bitcoin? Your word is your Bitcoin. That's what it is. And no one can take your word. 12 to 24 words. And if you don't have those words, you don't have Bitcoin. You have a paper representation of Bitcoin, but you don't have Bitcoin. And as the scarcest item on earth, why would you not want to actually have the real thing? So no one here should be thinking about participating in these paper versions. GBTC, Grayscale Trust, that's also a paper version of Bitcoin. That GBTC actually has the keys to the Bitcoin, which means that they own the Bitcoin. You own a paper representation of the Bitcoin. You should not want paper representation of this. You should want the real thing. Let these paper entities clamor for the very item that you own for the first time. We're in the position where they're clamoring. They have to think of the power of this, guys. These big giants, they have to beg Bitcoiners for their Bitcoin. Oh my God, think about that. BlackRock has to beg you for your Bitcoin. Where else is it going to come from? They can't get it from someone else. They have to go to a Bitcoiner to get it. They have to go to people who have it. They have to go to you. They have to beg you. And I'm telling you, if you let your Bitcoin go to them at 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, you're a fool. I'm sorry, you're a fool. Don't let them off that cheap. That's nothing for them. Do not let them off that cheap. Let them scramble for this. Let's not dump our bags on them. Let's keep our bags. Let them scramble. Let them have to bring this thing to $2, $3, $4, $5 million a coin. They're gonna have to do it because it's the only way they're gonna be able to shake some of it loose. Let them work. Let them scramble. Let them beg. Do you hear me, people? That's right, Mike. Less than 1%. Crazy. ETFBitcoin.com says Bitcoin IPO, great way to frame it. 1.4 million precious Bitcoin available for all the banks, governments, institutions, and ETFs to fight over. MicroStrategy alone has 189,150 Bitcoin. That's crazy. Some people actually, again, I addressed this today a little bit in one of my responses to someone, but because we're so entrenched in the old corrupt system, we still have this internal feeling that something must be wrong when someone gets too much of something. So there's this feeling that Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, there's something not right about owning that much Bitcoin. It must be something wrong with that. That must be bad for Bitcoin, right? No, it's not. It's actually good for Bitcoin. All Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy is doing is making the scarcest asset on earth just that much more scarce, that much more valuable. And it really doesn't matter very much whether the Bitcoin is in the right hand of someone or the left hand of someone. That doesn't matter because you can't have an unowned Bitcoin. So it's going to be owned by someone. But there's this internal feeling that a lot of people have that it's just not right that he owns so much. But this is proof of work. It's not proof of stake. You can't have control over Bitcoin by virtue of how much you have. The person with 189,000 Bitcoin has not one iota of extra influence over Bitcoin than the person who has one single Satoshi. And no one has control over Bitcoin. No one controls the network. No one. There's no influence. There's no extra influence that Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy have just by virtue of the size of their Bitcoin bags. Zero. And this is what makes Bitcoin extraordinarily fair, that as far as the Bitcoin network is concerned, one Satoshi is equal to every other Satoshi. Doesn't matter if a bunch of Satoshis are in this address. It still values every single Satoshi as being equal. And so there's no extra advantage that you get by having more than someone else. And what something else that I think that's misunderstood about the MicroStrategy's approach to Bitcoin and their ownership of this 189,000 Bitcoin is that is actually on behalf of over 1,000 shareholders. So it's really, that Bitcoin is really technically owned by tens of thousands of individuals and entities. So let me explain to you how this works. So let's say, for simplicity's sake, and it's more than this, by the way, but let's say for simplicity's sake that MicroStrategy has 1,000 shareholders. And so the assets of MicroStrategy, including its Bitcoin, is literally owned by those 1,000 shareholders. But think about this, 55% of those 1,000 shareholders, right? Almost 600 of those 1,000 shareholders are publicly traded entities themselves with tens of thousands of shareholders of themselves. So if you were to really break down the ownership of that 189,000 Bitcoin, that's spread out over tens of thousands of different individuals and entities. It's not owned by Michael Saylor or MicroStrategy. It's broken up over tens of thousands of individual people and entities. And so I think there are many people who look at that incorrectly and see it as this, massive singular accumulation by one person or entity. It's not true. And MicroStrategy's approach is very brilliant because what MicroStrategy has positioned itself to become is a leveraged proxy for Bitcoin, a leveraged long proxy for Bitcoin. And so here is where the stupidity of these degenerate traders come in. I'm always telling you, don't trade Bitcoin. Trade everything else for Bitcoin. I'm also always telling you that mathematically trading Bitcoin cannot be done successfully. Guys, I've been a professional trader for 37 years, 43 years if you count the idiot years. All right, 43 years trading financial markets. I am telling you, I know how to apply mathematical risk models to an asset. And you cannot, it is a mathematical impossibility to successfully trade an 80 vol asset like Bitcoin successfully over a period of time. You can get lucky for a week, a day, a couple of months, maybe even a year. But over time, it's like the casino. The 80 vol nature of the asset eventually will eat you alive. It is a mathematical certainty. It is impossible to successfully trade Bitcoin over time. And if you hear anyone claiming, excuse me, if you hear anyone claiming that they're a successful trader of Bitcoin, that they traded back and forth hundreds of times successfully, you know what? They're a fucking liar. Because it's not mathematically possible. And another reason why it's not possible to trade successfully over time Bitcoin, not in addition to the fact that it's an 80 vol asset, over 80% of Bitcoin's annualized gains come only on 13 days of the year. Some of you should write that down. Over 80% of Bitcoin's annualized gains are spread out over a random 13 days, which means that the reward goes to the person who's always in, not in and out. The reward goes to the accumulator. It does not go to the trader. And so from a mathematical perspective, you can't trade it because it's an 80 vol asset. And on top of that, you add the fact that over 80% of its gains come over a random 13 days out of the year. And this becomes the stupidest asset in the world to trade. And I've gone off on this tangent for a reason. I'm going to bring it back home here now. If you want to add a trading element to Bitcoin, it is better to do it with MicroStrategy, not with the underlying asset itself. MicroStrategy is a far more superior item to trade than Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is what you accumulate. MicroStrategy is what you can trade. And because MicroStrategy is Bitcoin from a US dollar price perspective, MicroStrategy is Bitcoin on steroids. It's a leveraged version of Bitcoin. So it's like you're buying a 4 or 5 to 1 leverage position on Bitcoin when you buy into MicroStrategy, right? And so that leverage works both ways, by the way. So it on the down cycles, it is going to underperform by about 400 to 500%, and it's going to outperform about 400 to 500% on the upside. So you get that 4 to 5 leverage on both sides. It cuts both ways, but it's far better to trade MicroStrategy than it is to trade Bitcoin itself. And if I were a betting man, and I am, I would do options on MicroStrategy to even add more juice to that part of the game. And that's what a real professional would do. They would know that the risk model on trading the asset is very poor. So the reward only goes to the accumulator of the real asset. The accumulators win. That's why, what's the percentage now? Like, was 86% of all Bitcoiners are in profit right now? 86% of every single human being or entity that owns Bitcoin today is profitable. 86%. That's crazy. And it's still down decently off the highs. I mean, obviously, when it goes to new all-time highs, 100% is in profitable territory, right? But 86% of every single holder today is in profitable, which is despite the fact that it's significantly off its all-time highs, which proves to you that the reward goes to the holder. It goes to the accumulator. It does not go to the trader. So if you want to trade this thing, look to MicroStrategy. If you want to add more juice to this from a fiat perspective, use that vehicle. That vehicle is far more superior. All right. What else do I got here? Any questions here? Let's see. There are some pros, and Bread and Bitcoin says there are some pros and cons to owning MicroStrategy versus Bitcoin. I'd be very careful here. I'm just saying, if you consider yourselves one of these degenerate traders and you want to trade something, that MicroStrategy is a far more superior item to trade than Bitcoin itself. But don't get it twisted. It is not a replacement for owning Bitcoin. I am telling you that I believe with every fiber of my being that if you do not own the asset itself, that you will die very disappointed as a human being. I believe this. I believe that not owning Bitcoin is going to be one of those big mistakes that some people go to their deathbed with. It is going to be the cause of deep depression and deep regret. Bitcoin is going to outprice all of us. Do you understand this? That the time where you can get this item in sufficient quantities is very small. This window is very small. And in a matter of months, maybe, certainly in a matter of a year or two, but maybe even in a matter of months, you will never again, ever, people, ever in your entire lives, you will never be able to get this again in sufficient quantities. Never. So you can mark this on your calendar today You will talk about this time for the rest of your life, the time where you could buy it. Do you realize that Bitcoin is not going to be for sale for very long? You don't see this? They're not going to be exchanges anymore. That's a short-term pit stop of a business right now. There's no future in being a Bitcoin exchange. Nobody's going to sell. Who sells the most valuable asset in the world? Who sells that? What do you sell it for? The 15th most valuable asset in the world? Bitcoin is on its way to becoming the most valuable asset on planet Earth. What do you sell number one for? Number 20? Oh, I want to downgrade from the most valuable asset to the seventh most valuable asset. No, you don't do that. You don't sell the Mona Lisa to fill up your gas tank. You don't sell the Mona Lisa for anything. No one is going to sell this thing in the future. I need you to get that through your heads, people. This is not going to be something that's sold. It's something that's going to be used as pristine collateral for every single thing else in the world, but it will not be sold. I promise you this. Your grandchildren are going to say, you lived during the time where you could buy Bitcoin, granddad, grandma? How old are you? And why didn't you buy more? This is not, this window of time where it's for sale is very short-lived. So any business, I'm telling you this, any business today that's relying on selling Bitcoin to be in business, their epitaph is already created for them. It's no long-term business. And the smart ones know this, and that's why they move into ancillary things like doing shows, and even shows, guys, are going to disappear. These Bitcoin conferences, really seriously, when's the last internet conference you've gone to? Oh, we're coming around to, in May 2024 there's the great internet conference coming up. Are you going, Johnny? Nobody has internet conferences today, but I remember I went to an internet conference right here. I'm in Manhattan right here. I see the building. I'm looking through I see the building I went to on 6th Avenue to an internet conference. You don't see any internet conferences today, do you? There's not going to be any Bitcoin conferences. It's going to seem silly in the future. It's not going to be any businesses that sell Bitcoin. Nobody's going to sell this. So when I say, to get back to my original point, do not mistake trading for dollars as a alternative to owning this. You need to own this, guys. You need to own this. Your family will never forgive you in the future. Do you understand? Because the world will ultimately realize this, and the Bitcoin blockchain is the ultimate arbiter of truth, right? Your record is going to be visible for the entire world, especially your family. Every activity of the blockchain is available and visible for the entire world. You're creating your record today with your Bitcoin purchases. Your family in the future will go back over your history to see how intelligent you were or how stupid you were. Granddad, where are your activities? You lived during this time, right? When it was available? Where's your history, Granddad? Is this why we're at the bottom of the world? Because you don't have a Bitcoin history? You think I'm joking? I'm not joking. Your history is going to be laid bare for your entire family. Your entire family line will go back to the time where they had a family member that had the ability to get this. You want your record to show that you saved your family. You want your record to show that I took care of my bloodline. Guys, this is not going to be available. This is not going to be sold very long. You're not going to be able to open up a Coinbase account and press buy. That's disappearing. I already showed you the number. Look at that image again. Look at it again. There's 21 million that finally gets issued by the year 2140. There's already 19.6 million already owned. And what? Almost 86% haven't let go of it. 86% haven't let go of it in the last, what, 6 months? 72% of it hasn't let go of it in the past year. What other asset is there like Apple that you can't? Those statistics are not. Apple's the most valuable asset in the world today, right? At 3 trillion, it's the most valuable asset in the world today from a fiat perspective. 3 trillion, and Apple doesn't have metrics like that. 86% of the people haven't moved. They don't have. If Apple went down 75%, do you know how many people would how many institutions would have to dump Apple? This asset is unique in this way that over time, the number of people that grow to understand that you don't ever sell this, you don't ever let it go, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Guys, that number is not going to go down. The number of people that don't sell this, that hold on for dear life, that number of people is not going to diminish. It's only going to increase. These numbers that you hear, 86% haven't moved in 6 months, 72% haven't moved their Bitcoin in a year. These numbers are going to get higher all the way to 100%. Now, people say, well, Oliver, if no one actually ever sells it and everyone holds it, then what's its use going to be as the most pristine collateral on planet Earth? That's how it's going to be used. It's going to be used as the base layer of value. There are going to be things on top of your value. You're going to have Bitcoin as the base layer of your value, and there are going to be other things you can do because you have that base layer of value. You will never let go of the base layer of value because the base layer of value is what gives you the ability to get anything else in the world that you want. You don't ever get rid of the base. You play around with the things that are built on top of the base, but you don't ever get rid of the base. This has been the game that your real estate moguls have played for centuries. They build things on top of their land and bring them back down and rebuild this and let's build this thing taller and let's build this wider, let's bring it back down and let's redo it. But the base land, the base layer of value, they never do anything with. They hold on to that for dear life. They might lease the property for 100 years, but they don't give up ownership of it. They might allow you to build a skyscraper on it, but they don't give up ownership of the base layer of value. Bitcoin is going to be like your ultimate real estate. There are going to be things built on top of it, but you don't ever get rid of your base layer value. So your job today is to accumulate as much of this base layer of value as you can before it disappears. And it is disappearing. You see the numbers. I didn't make this up. I didn't make 19.63 up or 19.56 or whatever the number is. I didn't make that number up. That's already in the hands of people. It's going away, guys. And if the vast majority of the world can't get one full Bitcoin at $43,000, how fewer will be able to get it at 100,000, get one at 100,000? And then 1 million, and then 5 million, and then 10 million. And if you think Bitcoin's not going there, you just haven't been paying attention. It can't not go there. That's how crazy that is. It can't not go there because it's the only way to get Bitcoin is to take it higher. Think about this. I'm going to leave you with this thought. The only way, because this is not going to be for sale for very long, the only way to make it for sale is to raise the price. Some of you are thinking, if Bitcoin gets to 5 million, I'll let some go. And I know some of you will. That's the only way it's going to be made available is to keep taking it higher. And when no one else at 5 million is willing to let it go, when you've reached the last person willing to let go of Bitcoin at 5 million, guess how it becomes available again? 6 million. And when no one else is willing to let go of it at 6 million, guess how you get it again? 7 million. The only way in the future to get Bitcoin is to raise the price. And this will go up in value for that reason forever. Listen to me. My mother used to say, Oliver, there are two things you should never say. You should never say never. And you should never say forever, Oliver. Well, Mom, I'm sorry. I gotta say it. Forever. The value of Bitcoin will rise forever. Never. I'm sorry, Mom, again. Never in your lifetime will it go down in value. Never in the lifetime of your children, never in the lifetime of your grandchildren. This is an asset that will go up in value forever. Well, hasn't gold gone up for 6,000 years? I mean, gold is at or near its all-time high, no? It has been used as a form of money for 6,000 years. So gold's been going up for 6,000 years, right? And you're telling me Bitcoin, far more superior than gold, can't go up for 6,000 years? It's going up forever. And your job is to not get fooled by the noise. The noise in between its birthdays. You know what Bitcoin's birthday is? You know what its birthday is, guys? Its birthday is every leap year. It's every presidential year. Every 4 years, Bitcoin has a birthday. And in between its birthdays, people get killed. They fall for the trap in between Bitcoin's birthdays. They get distracted by the noise between Bitcoin's birthdays. But when you connect the birthdays, it's a straight line up. I'm going to repeat that so you get it. If you just connect Bitcoin's birthdays every 4 years, put a dot on its birthday and connect the dots, those dots will go up for the rest of your life, for the lives of your children, their children, for the lives of children not yet born. This will do the same thing that gold did, but better. This will not only go up for 6,000 years, like gold's been going up for 6,000 years, it is going to do it more meteorically because it's superior, it's more scarce, and it's more available. Meaning that every human being can gain access to it. And it will make the world a better place. Why? Because you can't steal it. You can't steal Bitcoin. If done properly, you can't steal it. So the only way to get it is to deliver value. It's going to make everyone have to become valuable. And what does that do for humanity? It raises humanity. It raises productivity. It raises ingenuity. It raises the human race. If you can't take it and the only way to get it is to deliver value to your fellow man, you're going to have to find a Bitcoiner and give that Bitcoiner something of extraordinary value to get Bitcoin. You're going to have to go to a Bitcoiner and please a Bitcoiner. You're going to have to go to a Bitcoiner and give something of tremendous value, because that's the only way the Bitcoiner is going to let go of something that's going to pay him forever. It better be good. It better be damn good. And so in this fashion, you become elite, because the world has to come to you to get it. And they have to come to you correctly. They have to come to you with extraordinary value. They have to offer you things that are extraordinarily special, because it's the only way. They're going to have to please you. Be a 13%er. Be a 13%er, guys. All right, guys, I love you all. I hope everyone has enjoyed their holidays. Hope you spend time with family, friends, loved ones. I wish you all the best. I'm always telling you that every time I'm offered the opportunity to speak to a single individual on a mic, on a podium, a stage, or what have you, I do my very best. I try to deliver something of value, something that I think will make you think, make you ponder, and potentially something that will be valuable to you for the rest of your life. I hope I've done that here today. If I haven't, I promise you, every single time, I'm going to get better and better and better. That's my promise. All right, guys, you know what to do. Get to work. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!